When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everybody. This is Mark Ledlow, the host of the Fearless Mindset Podcast. I got the cutting range, not really, just returned back to Oregon from a business trip. And we have a new guest. A new guest, folks. He has not been on the show yet at all. I think I had to get my chops experience enough to warrant the ability to host this gentleman. And you know Craig for many, many years. He's a legend and an icon in this industry. He's laughing really hard. Yeah. No, he's been in the business a while. Everybody knows Craig. And he reached out and said, hey, I'd love to have a conversation. I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not? One thing about me, folks, I work with everybody. Aside from all the drama we see on social media, I'm not going to address any details, but I believe in lifting each other up, and Craig does a phenomenal job of that.
Well, I appreciate that.
And being a Marine Corps veteran, I'm just about helping each other, teamwork, everybody's a rifleman in the Marine Corps. And so I really respect what Craig's done in the industry. He's always volunteering his time. Sometimes I'm sure a lot of it volunteer, not paid for. You're almost like a missionary in the security world. If we not getting all spiritual over here, but Craig does a lot of stuff. He works for CW with the EP mixer and does a lot of legwork around the country. And it seems like he's just serving the industry, trying to make it better in his own way. So I just want to have Craig on to tell his story, see what's going on, what's up. And we got a big deal coming around next week with them in Vegas. And I'll be heading over there. My one teammate over there, Steve Pellerin, will be joining to say hello to everybody. So Craig, what's going on in your world?
Well, just happy to be here for one. I feel kind of the same way. I put some time in. I think I can offer, when you own a business, when you're doing something kind of out there on your own, or like he's with a partner, things like that. But it's like anytime you can get your message out, it's a shameless plug, right? I mean, just like I hit you up on LinkedIn. I'm like, hey, Mark, if you ever need content, like, hey, I'm doing you the favor, buddy. We're all out there. We're just out there. You're doing a great job with the podcast. You have traction. People are listening, and messages are getting out, regardless of who they're coming from. There are people that are tuning in. They want to hear. And so understanding that, I was like, well, like you said, we've known each other for several years here, and I thought, at this point, I had something to say, and not that you ever need validated. You shouldn't, but you do. People are listening now, not because I'm some wizard with anything except networking and any level of success that I've had. How I find myself on this podcast right now is because of networking. And so that's when you're talking about being a missionary, like I give away a lot of information. I give away a lot of effort but I appreciate the understanding of that. I am trying to influence the industry in my own way. Am I the fastest guy out of a holster? No, I am not, but
Makes two of us.
Can I do it right? Can I do all the cool guy stuff? Sure.
You feel cool guy. It's
yeah, but can I do all that stuff? And it's like, yeah, I can, but that's not why people want to listen to me. I take a different perspective and a different approach to getting out there. Like doing all the training and all that stuff is important. All the hard skills all day long, right? But how do you get the opportunity to put those to use? And you can submit a resume and you can your CV and all that stuff. And I think when we were on the phone earlier, it wasn't so much They say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And it's not so much who you know, it's who knows you and how. And getting out there in front of people and having multiple conversations and going to the conferences and going to mixers and even regionally or in your city, going to ASIS or whatever, just getting out there in any business, the Chamber of Commerce, the more eyes that are on you, the better. And that's why I think, that's why I talk about networking ad nauseum.
Well, I think CW, to the audience, if you don't know what that means, that's the initials for Christian West. I have a lot of admiration and respect for Christian for what he's done in the industry. He built AS Solutions and sold it. I mean, they had a couple sales and he's involved with it. The guy's a mastermind in business and he gets it. He understands it. And for him to reach out to you guys reach out to each other and he trusts you to, you're representing his name a little bit with the mixer part of his name being on it says a lot about you. He sees what you're capable of. And Christian's always been that way. He's been that guy that he sees the strengths in others. And that's how he built the AS Solutions. And if it wasn't for AS Solutions, the exec protection industry probably wouldn't be where it's at now.
I think it's probably pretty fair to say,
right.
There's a couple of, I don't know many other, larger companies, than his, you think about I want to say old school because they progression, but as far as putting it out there for people to hear, or to experience, just information. They started doing newsletters and he started doing those videos. And I forget how many years ago. And then, and then other companies started to catch on and that had been traditionally pretty quiet. But it was just, I think it just kind of opened it up, opened the discussion up about what it is. And not everything is trade craft or secret or things like that. It's like, these are things that you can know and it's okay to know. And I feel like he was probably one of the first people to share that at scale, because of the experience that he had. But you also aren't able to do that unless you had done necessarily what he had done with a solution. And it's him, but he's the first guy to say, like, that's why I had to hire people because I can't do this and I can't do that. I can see the big picture and I'm a visionary, but the day-to-day stuff, that's not him. And so, but understanding that he goes at, which is a business mentality, but also one of the biggest things I appreciate about him is his non-American mind. Here's an immigrant, from Denmark who just thinks about things differently and sees things differently. And the conversation that I've had and the ones that you've had, I'm sure, that's how you come into like, oh, wow, I didn't think of that. Now, whether it was because it was his business mind or his European mind, I don't know. But either way, I always feel better coming out of conversations with him.
Yeah. Speaking of, the newsletters and all that, I was talking to Aaron Malden back then in the AS Solutions days. And it's funny, they owned LinkedIn back then. Aaron would tell me percentage of business they got from just LinkedIn alone back then. And ironically, it was interesting. And then Gavin Beckford started doing it, what they were doing. And so then all of a sudden, everybody else started doing it because they're like, oh, that's what you guys are doing? So now you see LinkedIn is, 1,000 posts from, 1,000 different companies doing the same thing, getting the same eyeball. But it's just genius that, he sees leadership and he understands his own weakness. He goes, okay, this is my weakness, but that's his strength or her strength. And then boom, pull it in, him and Joe Horse are partnering up. He sees something in Joe. Joe's really good at what he does, and he loves the passion of the industry. And, I'm sure they're going to kill it together. And then, it's just great to see. So we talked enough about those legends. Let's talk about Craig. Let's talk about, you're the co-founder of Maverick Protection Group and co-founder of that. You got married and marriage kind of changes things a little bit. So you're the networking guru in the industry and what's going on now? What's the passion? What's the trends? What do you see happening? And as the industry shifts right now in this crazy election year we're in, and from what I hear, everybody's crickets and budget cuts are being cut by the CISOs and nobody's spending any money right now until they absolutely have to. That's kind of what I'm hearing, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, What, so yeah, you're right. He got married last year. Still doing a lot of work on the Maverick end. But the passion is, I talked about this with the present owners at Maverick, that I still believe in the mission of what they're going after, but also too I had this thing where I want to affect the industry, right? I wanted to, and that's through networking, and it's a big chunk but not thought of often. That's how I ended up here, how I ended up doing things with Christian, being a volunteer for the International Protective Security Board, and then working at the CPCs, every year. I want to be able to direct traffic, and when I say that, it's like I feel like often I'm way more, I'm not at the level of the board members. They've been doing it. They're doing these things operationally. They've been doing it for years. I feel like I become a conduit a little bit where people can maybe get to them through me, or just because I'm there and I'm giving and I'm willing to sit and take and have a conversation and help direct. A lot of times it's people new to the industry. Like, what should I do? Like, where do I go? Like, I don't know, which it just all that to me, it all becomes networking. And so you have the conversation with them, whether they're transitioning or they're transitioning out of law enforcement, military, or a new career, or they're coming out of a school, or whatever, the multitude of different scenarios people are coming out of or dealing with. It's like, what do I do? Or where do I go? And a lot of it is like, well, you have to sit and figure out, like, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to like what part of the country do you want to work in? If you are in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, and you want to be executive protection, who's there? I mean, and there may be people there, but would you be better served or serving yourself to go to Chicago because it's regional, right? Or are you okay with going to the Bay Area or Seattle or LA or New York or any of the hubs for the industry? And so, and then, well, no, I'm not. Okay. Well, then what do you want to do? Well, I'm willing to travel along with 90% of the industry, right? Have gun, will travel. Right. And so it's not like that. While I think a lot of people think that's a big selling point, it's like, everybody's willing to travel. And if you find the right person, maybe they have or the right company, maybe they have the program. Crisis, I think SureFox has that. It's like, you can live where you want, and you're going to come out for 3 weeks, and then you're going to go back, or whatever their program is. And walking into one of those roles isn't exactly easy either. You got to have some level of background, some experience, and all the other things that they want you to have before they're willing to bring you on and give you that kind of latitude.
What's the biggest complaint you're hearing from the agents of the new generation coming to the industry right now? What is the biggest gripe by the new labor forces out there?
Well, I don't want to say biggest, the biggest concern, I don't say biggest concern we have, but one of the concerns
sure.
That Maverick had, and we had kind of touched on it earlier, was people want to get paid to get on the road, right? The brand new agents, and they want to get you. Does my time start? Does my time start when I leave the house? It's like, well, again, dependent on where you're going and where you're coming from. Like, well, yeah, if you're jumping on a plane, yeah, we'll pay you for the day because that's why you're traveling.
Yeah,
but your time doesn't start until you're on site, till you are, till you are prepped till you've been briefed, all that stuff, and everybody has their own SOP. So it might be a little different for this company, that company, but that was one of the things that kept coming up, that and a per diem, right? They wanted they were living at home and they wanted a per diem. And it's like, I don't know where you're getting your information or who's telling you that.
Wow.
But that's not necessarily how it is.
That's foreign. I mean,
yeah,
I saw that trend starting up after the pandemic. I think they got unemployment. Everybody's on unemployment for the year there. Nobody was working. So yeah, I get why the federal government said, okay, we'll give everybody unemployment to help you pay your bills. But it seems like that culture mindset continued on. And I think it's, they're trying to find who they are, their identity. Well, who are they? And then they're so demanding on what they think they're owed. Is that kind of what you're seeing too? They feel they're owed.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's what it is. There's probably a multitude of reasons why, how they get there, right? And it's hard to hear in my Gen X mind and ears. And what I had, what I had done, not counting the tons of people that came before me that are still doing it, were here and gone already, or the people that are still, but we paid our own way, right? We got our own gas, and there's, I'm sure there's probably people thinking, sucker, I didn't, and not everybody was like that. I mean, there were some people that did get paid for whatever reason, maybe I didn't know the right, whatever, but it was just one of those, it's one, or I don't say one of those, but it's enough. It's happening enough that it draws your attention. And it makes you a little bit concerned now, but there's also too, and let's not fail to recognize the other side of people that do get it, that I want to be part of this industry. And so let me put a pin kind of in that and I'll catch up to it. But when I was going through, this wasn't an option. This was what I'm doing. So a number of people that had come and gone to Maverick were, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do this for a little bit and we'll see. And then I'll go and do this. I'll go work at a mill, or I'll work for I'll be a vet tech, or I'll be, whatever. Like, and hey, all those things, good on you, honorable, things like that. But when I decided I wanted to be a bodyguard, in 1990, whatever, that's where I'm going. That was it. Now, when I got in, things changed and I started taking different directions, and other skills started to show up. And so I went with that road, but I've been tied to the industry for 25 plus years.
Long time.
Yeah. And because it's been casual sometimes, I've ebbed and flowed, so I haven't, when I started off, I felt like I was on a rocket ship. I went to EPI in 1999. I moved out to Vegas and I got a job at a club, as many of us do, doing security there. But the director of security was putting like a professional team together. Saw that I had a background. We were training weekly in martial arts. We were training in, the finer points of executive protection. Like, this guy was actually, like, he wasn't like a guy who was a tough guy and, like the classic bouncer guy that I'll move people for you, boss. He was a thinker, right? And here's how do we do this better and more efficiently. And I got on that job and I thought that was it. But, being young and not so smart, I didn't keep my foot on the gas. And I still stayed part of the industry, but I wasn't going the way, but yeah, everybody has their path. I found mine eventually. And once I started giving more than I was getting is when I started getting more.
Interesting concept.
So, yeah, right. First.
Service of others.
Without expectation.
Mm.
And that's the big thing. Like, yeah, we all want to go there, but it's like, let's put the work in. Right. And let's and how can I influence, and also who's watching, like who's watching what you're doing. And when I started volunteering, for the very first close protection conference after it was epic, and, when the schools and all that stuff. But in 2016 was the first one in, Bally's in Vegas. I had reached out, the board at the time was, Kristen Leonardson, Randolph, Christian, Bob Dugan, Jerry Hang, Filippo, Pete Dordle. I think those were that was the initial board.
Right.
And I reached out to Kristen because she was the president of the board at the time. And I go, hey, I'm here. I'm in, because I was living in Vegas at the time. And I'm like, hey, listen, man, if I can be helpful in any way, I don't care, whatever. I just want to be involved. If I need to go get coffee for somebody from you in Vegas, let me know and it will happen. And then I had that mindset in it pretty much ever since. And I've been able to, I still, a lot of it's missionary work, right? But,
what's the missionary mindset of service? Mm-hmm. And it's not the instant gratification, because you already showed in your career, you showed I'm willing to serve out of gratitude, because it's better to give than to receive. And working on that mindset of service, it's people see the organic heart that you had as genuine, not trying to rip somebody off, and that builds a trust factor.
Yeah. Oh, agreed. Well, and also too, like, which, I get to the point, like, I have these networking courses that I do, that I sell. One of them's on EP Access. I have another that I've developed at a 6-week kind of boot camp around networking and things like that. And that's actually how I met my Dave Schlechte at Maverick, because he was a client. But I have these things and I can make money at them, but I'm like, but I could also just give the information away. Like, so it's hard to know that. For me, it's been hard to know at what point do I put a price tag on these things, right? And I think there could have been a little bit of imposter syndrome, right? Like, who am I to say anything? But it's like, but here I am. I've done these things because, I got to be part of the board, and I got to be part of this, and I've done this, and I've done this. It's like, maybe I have a little bit of credibility now. People are willing to pay for it, and a lot of them have been. And I take sponsorships for the mixer. That's who gets it done. It's not like I'm not sitting on a pile of money that I can just throw these things. It's all the sponsors. So I'm wildly grateful for them, because without them, it doesn't happen.
Well, let's do a shout out. You have a big event coming out on next week in Vegas on April, I think the 11th, on Thursday, right?
Yes.
And you guys will be at the bar there, and just
SG Bar. It's out on the west side of town. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
What's the goal? What's the vision of those? What's the purpose? What's the motivation behind all that?
The purpose is Chuck Randolph uses a term, and I'm sorry, I'm just making sure that I have, if we get into this, I have everybody that I need to have. It's Chuck, as I said, Chuck Randolph uses a term that I have kind of adopted, and it's not, he isn't the first person to use it, but it was siloed. Our industry is pretty siloed.
I would agree.
I gather mine, and it's okay. We can be friends, but you stay over there. And I think a lot more gets done if you can get these people in the same room at the same time to have conversations about propelling the industry forward in whatever way that looks like, helping people find jobs. You get these guys and gals that come out, they spend a ton of money on, with their GI Bill to go to a school. And then they come out and there may or may not be a job for them, or maybe there is, but they're just not able to get in front of the right person. It's like, I want people to talk that. And so when I talk about networking, it's not only do I want to bring people together, but through the classes that I offer, I give them the skills to if you don't know what to say, I'll tell you what to say. If you don't know how to approach somebody, I'll tell you how to do that too. Like I can help you do this and I can help you help yourself. And that's what I want. I don't want to be stuck in the middle. I want here, you talk to this person because here's why you match up. Or here's why you might match up, and then let them go. And it's a lot of times it's just breaking the ice, and then people are off and running. We had a guy that I talked to pretty often that went to our mixer. He's been to a number of them, but he went to our mixer in North Palm Beach at the beginning of last year. And he ended up reaching out. I forget. It's a few weeks later. And he goes, hey, I'm doing some work for Kielsen. And I'm like, that's awesome, because the guys from Kielsen were there. They met him, had some experience, had schooling, had this, had that, great demeanor, interested in learning. And that's key too. Interested in learning the job. And put him on. Now, I don't know how much work he's done since then, but that was a success story for him. So that made me insanely happy.
That's where you get that's the joy component of the satisfaction of doing what you do with these mixers. What I find is I walk in that room, granted the room is full of people in the industry, and you have this alpha personality trait that comes with the DNA of what the industry is. You got to be able to control your environment. And so I think a lot of people are afraid of their own shadows. And that's why this whole networking thing and connecting to a human being freaks everybody out because they can't get out of their own way.
It's funny that you say that because I just did an interview with Mike Julian about not so much about that because he's a sponsor for the event and has been since last year, and he's going to be getting a podcast and was talking about that. It's like and actually Tim Wenzel has done a couple articles on the insecurity, and I'm like, there's a lot of that. And one of the things is, you don't need to be honest with me. And I'll tell this to people all the time is like, you don't need to be honest with me. Tell me whatever story, but you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself. What does scare you? Nothing scares me. Well, that's frightening to think of that, because what are you willing to do when you're not afraid? But also the fearless mindset of here's where I need to be cautious. Maybe not afraid. Maybe afraid isn't the right word, but it's certainly like you need to be cautious about some things, and your failures outside of for your client and keeping yourself safe. All the other failures don't matter, right? Like we start planning an event and it doesn't take off. We don't get the support, whatever, shut it down. Now, is that a failure? Maybe. Or did I learn something? Also maybe. It's just one of those, like you said it, can we get out of our own way? And sometimes yes, and sometimes no.
I think what I see is the agents, the human beings, let's call them human beings, just the human beings coming to the mixers.
Yeah.
They can't cross over mentally from work mode to mixer, get to know each other mode. They have a difficult time mentally putting on a different hat, going in that environment. Say, hey, what's up? They can't do it because they're so used to being that body agent on whatever, or the RST agent, that they go in that environment and they don't know what to do. They just freeze up. Almost like when I first started my first 10 podcast, I couldn't even talk. Why? Because my brain was so scrambled on focusing on all this technical stuff that's going on to make sure it was perfect. But after practice, 10 episodes into it, I'm like, who cares? Let's go.
Right.
But practice makes perfect. Like you have perfected it over time. And I think what happens is these guys and gals come to the mixer and they're too hard on themselves. They haven't forgiven themselves, and they haven't forgiven somebody else because they still have a grudge. We're alpha personalities, so we're all holding grudges against somebody because someone in this industry screwed us over. I've had half a dozen funerals in my lifetime in this industry where I couldn't work because I had such a bad rep in the industry. That happened to me twice. I was blamed. What it was is somebody couldn't stand me because I'm out hustling everybody. When you're out hustling, you're going to get some haters. That's just how it goes. And you're dealing with the alpha personality. Think about all those alpha personalities dealing with Michael Jordan and Tom Brady on the field or on the court. Mm-hmm. You're going to get haters. You do something, you're going to get haters. This is how and you're dealing with the industry full of alpha personalities. It just comes with the territory. Yeah. You just got to get over it. And you walk in those rooms. Trust me, I have some ex-business partners. Everybody knows that, who my ex-business partners are. And some of them owed me money. And, I'm like, what are you going to do? Forget? Well, nobody forgets, but you know who, the inside edition is. Everybody knows the talk, like everything going on online on LinkedIn lately. Everybody knows, you read between lines and, you know what's happening. But I think as an industry, for me, I've learned you have to take the high road. You got to take the high road. Things will work themselves out. The truth always comes out. And it's just, say, be comfortable in your own skin, but it takes time to be that. It takes time to get mature mentally and go through your experience and say, hey, I'm okay with me being me. And when you get to the point where the opinions of others don't matter to you anymore, it's the most free, mental free vacation you get. You just don't care about the opinions of others because they don't pay rent to be in my brain. So out. You're, as Mr. Wonderful says, you're nothing to me on Shark Tank.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's one of those like, and that's where it takes some real, some real work, right? To take yourself and say, okay. And if you have to do the side by side thing, right? If you have to do that, okay. But be realistic. Like you said, hard on yourself. Stop being so hard on yourself. Like, yeah, expect more, but it's progress, not perfection. Cause we're never going to, like you said, I appreciate the compliment, perfected it over time. I need to do better things. Mike Gonzalez with his Texas event. It's a great event. I haven't been to one, but I've seen it. I'm like, that's a good idea. And it's like I've given to him, before he did his first one, he and I had, I think, a couple of conversations, but he took it and made it his. Same with Justin Hansen when he did his thing up in Edmonton. He took it and made it his. Now I look at their stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, like that could be good. That could be better. But
yeah, shout out to Mike Gonzalez at the Texas Maverick Protection. What he's doing up there. Yeah, we sponsored that 3 times. And he called me, dude, you stood me up at the altar the 3rd time. You didn't show up. Like, dude, I'm recovering from COVID still. My second round, I was just didn't make it, but hey, bro, you're a Marine brother. I really respect what you're doing. Here's some cash, so that helps. And we did 3 times. And I really admire the heart of giving back to the industry, which is the heart you have, Craig.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And he does a great job. And it is coming from his heart. He's like, and he's, when we first talked about it, he goes, I don't want to do it nationwide. I just want to do it in Texas. And I'm like, whatever, man, like follow your own path. Like you got to get out there and do it because Mike will have the people that want to go to his event. And I want to go to his event. I couldn't swing it this time. He'll come to EP Mex. It's like and that was one of the things, like the Mixer sponsored not this past one, but the one before. And I was like, I want people to see, like, there's no, like, we're networking. Like, there's no, that's the whole point, is to bring people together. So if we're not on the sponsor board, and it's not because I'm not thinking of them, I try to call them or at least text them before each event, because it's not exactly the easiest thing to get one of these things off the ground.
It's a lot of work, background work.
It's a lot of work. You don't
months preparing for it, allocation of resources, allocation of space, renting space, signing contracts. Yep. Just for 4 hours of networking, there's the lot, and the TV guy, the camera guy, just videography stuff. There's a lot of work that goes into just hosting an event to allow that to happen. And shout out to you yourself, and shout out to Mike Gonzalez at Whataburger for doing that. It takes a massive amount of work. And if you're tuning in, we're about the half-hour mark of the podcast. And we're just talking about networking, mixers, and what Craig is really good at. Craig is the co-founder of Maverick Protection Group, and also taking the lead with the EP Mixer over there with the CW, also known as Christian West. So if you're tuning in, we are talking about how to work together, how to get along together, how to lift each other up in the industry, how to be friendly, how to be nice, and serve with just a genuine heart of servitude, like a missionary almost to the industry. I mean, people think you're weird, dude. Well, hey, it takes different people. Right? Man, you're all weird talking now. I'm like, no, it's when you mature in this industry, you realize it's not all about what's for me, what's in it for me. It's not. The minute you, like Craig said earlier in the first episode, is the minute you start serving others, it comes back to you tenfold.
Yeah, it's almost in my experience, it's been almost immediate. Right now, and what it does is open doors. And then but here's the thing, you got to go through the door. And if you're going to run into something like, oh, that wasn't for me. Step out. Okay. Which, and okay, we go through that one, or I'm going to talk to this person, or like I've blown so many opportunities. I look back and I'm like, how did I see that? Like, why didn't I do this? But everything puts you to where you are, right now. And I think a lot of us, again, if we're being honest with ourselves, can go back through our lifetime and say, boy, did I screw that up at that point. Boy, I missed an opportunity there. But also too, it brings you to right where you are. Now, if you don't like where you are, then there's an issue, right? There's plenty of things, like, why did I go to Vegas? I went back. I went to California. I was overseas. But it all brought me to meeting my wife, right? And so that was a big win for me. And so all the things that happened before that had to happen, in my opinion, for that to happen. And so now how does my life change with her in it, with the kids that she brought? How does that change my trajectory in my mind or my mindset? Like, what now becomes important? It's like, well, that has to be at the top of the list, right? Our relationship has to be at the top of the list. So, and if we're not good, everybody else is getting a half version of us, right? And that includes our business partners, that includes our clients, our customers, our vendors, our partners, our colleagues in the industry, the people at our church. Like, if we're not taking time to make ourselves right, especially if with our spouse. And I'm new to marriage, so I'm not an expert by any stretch, but listening to other people that know way more than I do, that have been married way longer than I have, that work like maybe in that industry, that's what they say. And I try to learn from other people's mistakes, or their successes, but certainly their mistakes. Yeah. Like, maybe that's not something I should do. So that's, and again, getting back to, like, if you don't like where you are, you have the opportunity, you have the capabilities to change that. But like Tony Robbins will say, don't change your goal, change your approach. And so it's, where do I, this isn't working. What now? What? It's like, well, take a step to the right or take a step to the left, or go to the other side of it and look at the problem from that way, 30,000 feet instead of 3,000, and on and on. And so that's what we need to do, and what the industry needs to do to also to propel forward as well, I think, in my humble opinion.